Sunday morning, we're down at the Sunday markets, the Rotunda market. We've got a stand set up, and Jeff Caldbeck happened to walk past. Good to see you this morning, Jeff.
Hey, Matty.
Yeah, and a good busy markets out there, lots of people out there getting ready for Christmas. But I thought it'd be a good opportunity to talk to you, Jeff. We go a long way back, and one of the first times that I dealt with you in a professional capacity was at Dubbo City Development Corporation. So I was on the board, and you might help me here, about 2002, does that sound about right?
That's right, yeah.
So I got on the board in 2002, and then I became chairperson, and not long after being on the board, and so I spent a couple of years. You were the general manager, obviously a volunteer board, as many of those organisations are, but I met you then and dealt with you in that professional capacity. I think DCDC did a fantastic job back then. It did certainly help promote Dubbo's businesses, but I enjoyed the role on the board there, and certainly as chairperson of that board. From your perspective, how was your experience dealing with, say, me as a chairperson and me on the board from a DCDC perspective?
From an organisational point of view, I mean, if you had a few chairs, you had the ability as a general manager then to gauge the effectiveness of the chairs in their roles. And I've got to say, without drumming you too much, the fact that you were a good chair, you could see positiveness in DCDC, and I mean, you've always had your heart on your sleeve about Dubbo, and that went back to you, even back recently to your mayoral days where you supported Dubbo. We got to do a lot of things under your reign, including we had a BEC office, Business Enterprise Centre. We also had an Austrade office that we won the contract for the federal government to help people export. So we had a guy coming in from Wellington who was an export manager, and so we did a lot of different things that in our heyday. We had an operational budget of over $800,000, and if you keep in mind the council was donating $150,000, that shows you where we generated income from. I couldn't have done that without the board support and you as the chair to be able to sort of drive that on behalf of the board. So I think we work well together, and I've always been impressed with your style and your heart in the right place for Dubbo always. And in this new role that you're looking at, I could see you have your heart in the right place for Dubbo, but also the area that you'd support. So I wish you well.
Yeah, I think you're heading up Rural Financial Counselling Service, and you've grown that into a very large organisation. So how many staff have you got in that organisation now?
About 25 now. We've got 16 counsellors. Yeah, these are counsellors who work with farmers. Yeah. But we've got two companies, so we've got a second company or second organisation. So we've got Rural Financial Counselling Service, and that's funded part by the federal and part by the state. But we've also got another one called Rural Sector Support, which is also a not-for-profit, but it supports small business in the rural area. So we've recently had the 3-year contract where we looked after ASBAS, it's called, Australian Small Business Advisory Service. And we did an area of 9 shires, which Dubbo and Wellington were inclusive of those shires. This time we're doing it again, this time with funding under ANZ, but we're going to work out of Mudgee and pick up Dubbo as well. So it's exciting. Yeah.
And what you're saying there is really important. It's one of the things that I've no doubt seen throughout a lot of my campaigning. You'll talk to farmers, and we all know about the plight of the farmers with the drought that we've had. But I think sometimes people forget about the businesses that serve those farmers.
Sit behind, yeah.
So even in Tringy, for example, when I've talked to businesses in Tringy, some of those are being severely hit by the downturn from a farming perspective, but there's not really a lot of support for those businesses there that are ancillary to the direct farming business.
Correct. Yeah.
So what you're talking about from that second organisation is absolutely critical, in my opinion, in that support.
Yeah, no, we're going to try and expand that organisation exponentially. The problem is that, the federal government funding now for small business in New South Wales is done out of the BEC in Penrith, and it's an online service. I still think whilst the technical side of online and that, it works in Sydney and in Melbourne and Brisbane, you still got to understand that there is limitations to the service delivery in the bush. and that's got to do with tyranny of distance and all those sort of things. But you've therefore an on-the-ground guy at times is going to be far superior to, and we've seen that with DHS, Department of Human Services, with online forms, you know, for the farmers. That's difficult at times, and the councils get heavily involved, and it's a paper form to start with, maybe followed up with electronic to come. Yeah. It's just, I mean, we still live in a remote area, and you know, you've got to have a combination, and until there's a miracle about telecommunications and that miracle that means we can just think about it and it's going to work. I think you know, we've got to work on the best we can.
Yeah. And I think one of the really important points you made there is it's not one size fits all.
No.
There are solutions that work in regional areas that may well be completely different to ones working in metro areas, and certainly that's part of my focus is make sure we are represented correctly in someone who knows this area and knows that there are differences there. So I think
you've got to be able to pick the differences with the communities and also get a feel for what that community's feeling as a result of the drought. That's a big one.
Yeah.
And it may not be the impact in two towns that are identical in size. The impact can be significantly different between each town because the rural sector in that town is successful, been under showers, got a crop in, or no rain, no crop.
So the RFCS, the Rural Financial Counselling Service that you head up now, the area that you cover, what's the sort of area that you've got there?
52% of New South Wales.
So if anyone's got a bit of an idea on talking about some of those disadvantages with distance and some of the problems that people face, I think you're in a pretty good spot to talk about that.
I do, yeah. We go to the South Australian, Queensland borders, and as far as Lithgow in towards Sydney.
Yeah, right.
So it's a big area. But you know, I mean, when it's good, it's really good. When it's bad, like now, it can be really bad. So I mean, you've had a good exposure to these areas through Dubbo and then through the region. I think you've got a good understanding of what the bush is going through.
Well, it's always good to chat to you. Thanks for your time today.
Mate. Thanks.
And keep up the good work that you've been doing with servicing such a huge area. And I'll do everything I can to help you if I can get in March next year.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. And we're looking at. I'll have to retire one day.
Steady on. You've got a few years left in you yet.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Jeff.